thanks for coming to the Staffing Solutions at Sloan Museum event. Again, hosted by the Flint and Genesee Group Foundation, who is running the GLSSC, Genesee, Lapeer, Shiawassee, and St. Clair County Childcare Coalition. And I am from Data Driven Decisions. My name is Ken Roble, and I'll be your MC tonight. And so I'll just briefly, I've introduced who's running the show, who's here, but I'd like to represent who has made it happen, which is the coalition members themselves. So I'm aware that we have Allison Newman here from Flint and Genesee Foundation. If we could at least raise a hand just to identify. Allison's over there. Yes, thank you, everyone. And we have Julie Bash from the Eastern Resource Center for Great Start to Quality, from the early childhood system. So we've had economic development organizations, early childhood here. Annette Sobozinski, are you in the house? I was aware she's late, she's coming. She's also from the network, Nonprofit Leaders Childcare Network is where she's from. So a part of the system, and we need everyone here to solve it, right? Bridget Wood, were you able to make it? She's running late. Okay, so we have a parent who's been a part of the coalition. She's given a valuable perspective. Just the last meeting we had at the Lavender Farm, she was helping us identify, some of the feedback that's commonly provided by, say, in a workforce. Just what do you need for childcare? If they're asking just the men in a certain industry, they may just get I don't know, and then that's not helpful, right? So the feedback of how do we get complete household information. So even when we talk to employers and recommend just easy ways to get info, having that perspective at the table helps us adjust course quickly and gather better data and be more impactful faster. And then last but not least on my list is Mecca Mack. Are we here? Mecca didn't make it yet. She was maybe going to make it. All right, she's also a center provider. She's attended a couple of our meetings. She's been very involved with the coalition. So that is everybody from the coalition. So you'll see we have different sectors represented. Our business leaders who registered weren't able to make it in many cases, but I know we have other business leaders in the house. So if we could just get maybe a hands up to represent who is from an employer other than economic, childcare, etc. All right, couple. We got a couple employers. You work here. Well, this is an employer too. Thank you. We need your perspective. Okay. So the big picture of what we talk about in these meetings is that we're trying to solve a really big problem, and simple solutions don't work, right? You can't solve a complex problem with simple solutions, or you get the whack-a-mole scenario we all know too well. And so we have to have the right stakeholders in the group, and that's really why these meetings mean so much, is that we have people from all the different sectors talking together about the big picture, and we all have a different perspective on it and an important angle to share. And so in that context, really, we're talking about childcare as infrastructure. It is for communities. That is for business owners and workers, employees and employers, childcare municipalities, and every representative up the chain to the state level and the feds. They're all prioritizing early childhood as infrastructure, and these conversations are where we're really enacting those possibilities and opportunities when we think about the money that's coming. So setting that stage, I'd just like to, introduce, before I do, everyone has a bag, I believe, right? Have you received your bag? Not yet. Okay. You're going to receive a bag that includes a number of materials. I'll do the quick Vanna White. Our colleagues from Pulse and the John Updike Institute, correct me if I misspoke. Thank you. We have the employer roadmap, which many of you will be familiar with, and if you're not, you'll receive a copy of it. It's a very nice publication designed for that audience to help employers navigate the complexity. And within that, we have a few more materials I'll just point out. So that's a large and excellent material. In addition, Allison has provided some really nice context for Genesee. So we have some links to explore Flint and Genesee, some local resources, as well as two of the QR codes that are accessing data sets that we've prepared to support the implementation work across the region. And so these are effectively, one is a early childhood landscape for the region. So it's using all of the public data and doing the storytelling very visually to try to support the insights that we can have from all our perspectives while we communicate abroad. And the other is more specific to including all of the employers from public Lightcast data. I guess it's actually private, so they paid for it. But we're merging it with the childcare data to help represent where the demand is and where the employees are, where are the employers to be able to talk about that correlation, the relationship between where the childcare capacity is and that. We have one more coming. I'll just say it as a teaser. We don't have it today here, but a bookshelf resource for early childhood literacy resources for Genesee County. We have that data set, and we've developed a version of the map that shares Flint and Genesee County childcare information with the overlaid locations of these early childhood maps. It's just an example of how that can be done, so we'll be sharing that resource soon. All right. So that concludes at least the information I wanted to cover from the gift bags. And let's see where we're at here. I won't go any further into the map until anyone has questions, so we can talk about that later when we have a chance. But yeah, I think we'll start with Carla Mancini now, and I'll hand it off to talk about some of the real immediate solutions, and this will be about TriShare specifically as one of the big mechanisms the state has really lifted up. Everything has its limitations, but everything has its purposes, and we have a really strong opportunity with a lot of resources, and we have communities embracing it in unique ways, working around limitations that have come up during implementation. So I will mute my mic, and we will get a mic for Carla. You have it.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Carla Mancini. I'm from Childcare Network. I can't look at this person this whole time. She's going to make faces. Turn around. No, I'm joking. I'm the Community Programs Director at Childcare Network, and I oversee the TriShare program. Before I start talking all about TriShare, I'm curious who in this room already knows really the basics about TriShare? That's pretty good. Okay, that's good. Okay, so TriShare is a program that is designed to help relieve barriers of the cost of childcare. And employers are encouraged to participate in the TriShare program by committing to pay 1/3 of the cost of care for their employees. So the employer will pay 1/3, the employee will pay 1/3, and then the TriShare program pays the other third. And this is a way so that employees can continue to come to work. They don't have to worry about access to childcare or the cost of childcare, or I can't pay for childcare this week. And it can also be used as a recruitment and a retention tool as an employer. Because if you're offering this, a lot of times, what I say is a lot of times people are chasing the dollar. So if you're paying for 1/3 of the cost of childcare and TriShare is paying for 1/3, the employee is cutting their cost of childcare dramatically, which is well worth more than $1 that they're going to get down the street from somebody else. So that's the basics of TriShare, but I wanted to share some statistics about what happens when people don't have access to quality, affordable TriShare. So according to a 2023 report from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, Michigan employers lost $2.3 billion in 1 year due to employee turnover and absenteeism caused by childcare issues. That's a lot of money. A pre-pandemic study found that every year, 45% of employed U.S. parents are absent from work an average of 8.6 days per year due to unmet childcare needs. And 65% of employed U.S. parents' work schedules are disrupted an average of 15 times during a year due to unmet childcare needs. So by disrupted, I mean have to leave work early, have to come in late, things like that. Or a sick child, different things like that impact how an employee is able to come to work. And you know, when employees call in or employees have to leave because they have children, a lot of times this can impact, I say, like their reputation or what people consider their behaviors at work. And we don't want that. And it's not true. People have families, people have things that they need to tend to in their personal lives, but childcare should not be a barrier to coming to work. Also in Michigan, we lose $576 million in 1 year in tax revenue because of inadequate childcare options. So people cannot be employed if they do not have childcare. There are so many people that would love to come back into the workforce if they had access to quality childcare. So if you're coming back to work for $15 an hour, but your childcare bill is $13,000 a year, that makes it pretty difficult. Any questions so far? Anyone shocked a little bit about those numbers? Okay. So TriShare was designed as an innovative approach to address these childcare needs. It's very simple to participate. Is anyone in here a participant of TriShare? Not yet, but you will be. No. We make it very simple to participate as an employer in TriShare. We can present to you, we can present to anyone that needs the information and share the details about how the program actually works. But it is so simple to enroll as an employer, and we make it even easier for the employees. So as an employer, you just have to commit to pay that 1/3. Childcare providers, we can work with them so that they can understand the program, and childcare providers can be an employer and an employee at the same time, or an employer and a childcare provider at the same time, which can be really beneficial. Is anyone in here a childcare provider? Yeah, so if you give a discount to your staff already that have children in your program, it may be beneficial to be an employer in TriShare because it could actually save your company money in the long run, because you would only be responsible for 1/3 of the cost of care instead of that 40% or 50%. Today I spoke with somebody that gives free childcare for certain age children to their staff, but infants and toddlers have to pay full price. So we tried to figure that out, and in the long run, it's still better to participate in TriShare than to give these discounts to your staff. So the process, again, like I said, is super easy. There's a platform that employers can enroll on. Employees do the same thing. They get their income verified. They do have to qualify for the program through their income, which is 200 to 325% of the federal poverty level. And I'm not sure if there was a TriShare flyer. There should be one in the bag. Okay. Perfect. So you can see the chart on that TriShare flyer of what the 200 to 325% of federal poverty level for your household looks like. But as an example, yep, that purple square. Thank you. That purple square, you can see that a family of 4 can earn just over $8,400 a month and still qualify for TriShare, which is pretty impressive. And once you qualify for the TriShare program, you are qualified for 2 full years without having your income checked. And then after that 2 full years, you will get requalified again, and that percentage goes up a little bit higher so that you can continue. If you've had wage increases, which is what we want, you still may qualify for the TriShare program after that 2 years.
I know you said you don't have to qualify, but for 2 years. So do you have to show any change in income during that time, like you would say for
No.
DHHS?
Nobody's going to ask you for any changes. You don't have to report any changes in income during that 2-year period. So all the billing has moved to United Way Northwest through a platform called My TriShare, and that's where the childcare providers do their billing. That's where the employers can see who's participating, and that's where the employee applies for the program and shares their income statements in order to qualify. It's so super simple and easy to work your way through it. Any questions?
So what do they probably have to make it into income?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, that's the low end and the high end of their income in order to qualify.
So if I might paraphrase then, if your employees make less than that low end, they would likely be covered by CDC scholarship.
Thank you. Yes.
Or GSRP depending on their age, or maybe
Yes.
even Head Start depending on
Yes.
other factors.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, if you are below the income, it is likely you qualify for childcare scholarships through DHHS. And we can help you apply for that if you're unsure how to apply for that.
Is that just your nuclear family, or is that people?
It includes the people who live in your home that contribute to the finances.
Roommates, so you have two families cohabitating, roommates do not count.
So I am not responsible for the qualifications anymore, but I feel like if that is a situation, which we know happens quite often, I feel like that situation could be brought to mytrishare.org, and that could be a conversation that could be had through them.
I think I can address that at least partially. That for MDHHS, for example, if you have two college students who are on food stamps, simply just that, they will be considered separate households even if they rent the same house and have a rental agreement with both their names on it. The household, as far as the government is considering it, is just who you report as your family that you live with.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much.
So TriShare is one of these opportunities we have in Michigan, really. As you heard, being able to pay 1/3 of the cost of a really valuable thing that can keep your workforce humming and maybe attract the right talent or keep the talent you need to retain, that price tag starts looking pretty reasonable. And just for ballparks to help everyone remember, it's easy to assume maybe around $10,000 a year for a child in Michigan as just a number. So if it's a third of that, then the family now only has to pay $3,300 or so for a full year of the care they really needed to be able to live their life, do their job and everything. So the impacts there might be many-fold, right? Because when we see that's the immediate result, but that also means that the employer has their full staffing without delay, without issues. So that means productivity stays on, things don't get behind, and as was mentioned before, Carla, you brought up the $2.8 billion that is the financial problem that Michigan experiences, and that was from, I believe, the municipal research study that was published earlier last year. But that finding is really a huge opportunity for us to make our systems more efficient and function the way that we've really intended. And so let's transition to Pulse. Kathy, I think you'll be really good at explaining here how employers can really find the value from all of the experiences you've had at Pulse. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Carla. Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Zenda Wilson. I am co-director of Pulse. We are down in Southwest Michigan, like your coalition. Hi, Annette. We were charged with developing a comprehensive childcare plan for our region as well. But in addition, for the last 5 years or so, we've been working really hard at trying to understand the dynamics with employers and what they need to be doing. So what we knew when we started engaging employers was they were interested in doing something, they didn't know what the something was, right? So I'm going to ask you all for a second here. I know it's late, so this is risky, but I want you to all close your eyes for a minute. Don't fall asleep. I want you to picture that in your community here, everyone has the childcare they need. Okay, picture it. Get yourself like really concrete and a visual of what that looks like, what people are experiencing. Are you there yet? I've got a couple thumbs up. All right, so how does it feel? Anybody?
I don't think I'm that creative enough to put that.
You couldn't think of it.
I've never experienced it.
Okay. What's it feel like? Peaceful. Happy? Community? Refreshing? Okay. What role could you see yourself playing in making that happen? So many of you are already related to childcare. You're doing the work, right? Now, if this was a room full of employers, they might be going, I really don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, right? That's somebody else's problem to solve. It's not mine. And we hear that a lot, right? And there's even some folks who will say, you know what, if you don't want to pay for your kids, then you shouldn't have them. And this is, right? Like we're battling a lot of barriers to making that reality true. And so we know we have a lot of mountains to climb, and how you climb a mountain is one step at a time. And so when we heard from employers, we want to be a part of the solution. We don't know what that looks like. We got to work. And we said, you know what? Let's develop some tools. There's a lot of work out there that's being done. The U.S. Chamber Foundation actually had created a roadmap for employers, but it was very one-dimensional. It was just like, do this, do this, do this, but with no like context, no like how to. And so I called the U.S. Chamber Foundation and I said, I love your roadmap, but I really think it could use some more oomph. Like it needs something. Do we have your permission to use it as a foundation? And they said, absolutely, go ahead. So then this was born. 6 painstaking months of walking alongside employers in Southwest Michigan who were willing to test it out with us. Like, yes, this works, not so much on that one. Here's what I would need if I wanted to actually do that. Can you help us figure this out? So we worked, pretty tirelessly at making sure that everything that was in this booklet that you'll have in front of you was something that they could actually use. And so what was really helpful, and this actually came from the U.S. Chamber Foundation, and many of you who have your bags will have this in front of you, is the first page is what's listed as, and I'll just show you as a demonstration here for those of you who don't have it, is the complexity chart. So if you want something that is relatively simple to do, we got that for you. If you're ready to step in and actually do something that's a lot more complicated, we got you there too, right? There's a lot to be learned, and the first is to help them understand the complexity of the problem. Because many, when we're in a room with them, just really don't get it. And let's face it, if you've gotten to the C-suite, because that's who we're talking to, they're even more farther removed, like in many ways, personally as well as professionally. And those who are being honest say that they didn't understand the most compelling part of the problem. Others just said, I don't think we have a problem. Nobody talks to me about it, right? And so we had to help them really get their arms around the fact that, most of your staff, if they've got young children, are struggling with childcare. Even if you have it figured out, you don't really have it figured out. You're just piecing it together. You're figuring it out. Now, my kids are really old. They're 25 and 30, and they love when I say that about them. But I can still remember having the struggle in the morning between my husband and I, if a kid woke up in the middle of the night sick, and saying, whose job is more important? Does anybody play that game? Yeah, and I would say, I've got 8 meetings today. I can't reschedule 8 meetings. And he'd say, I can't find a substitute. He was a high school teacher. So we played this game for I don't know how many years, right? And it's not fun. And we had flexible employers, right? Like we had people that we could make this work for. Imagine, we have a lot of manufacturing, as many places in Michigan do, where they have point systems for people missing work. And you will talk to people living in neighborhoods who will say, I'm not going to go to work at X company because I am 2 strep throat cases away from losing my job. Why even start, right? Like there's just no compassion or empathy for my life as a parent. And so we try to help employers understand what their policies do to those families with young children. If you want people to work, you have to know, you have to look in the mirror and say, these are the things we're doing that are keeping people out of the workforce, right? It's not just all on them and them having to figure it out. So there has to be some trust built with these employers to help them to get to that space where they're willing to look. Not all of them are willing, not all of them will do it. But we do say with this roadmap and any employer that we're working with is that you have to operate from a place of knowledge, and you can't, not assumptions, right? If you have assumptions, you're going to go down a lot of rabbit holes you don't need to go down. So what we have on the roadmap when you go to the website, and there is a QR code in here that'll take you directly to the site, is a customizable survey. We say do not do anything until you have actually surveyed your employees to find out what their lived experiences are. And there was a lot of fear at first. There were a lot of employers who said to us, I'm afraid to ask them because then they're going to assume I'm doing something about it and I'm not sure I'm ready to commit, right? They were being honest with us. They're like, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. And if I ask them, then there's going to be some expectation. And so we gave them some cover the first time around, and we had our economic development company do the actual surveying. They went in and said, hey, we're doing this on behalf of the community. We really just want to know what your experiences are. And what our employers, each of them in that first round said was, we didn't need that cover. We realize now that we can tell them we're a part of this greater effort to try and address the childcare crisis. We want to know what your experiences are. We'd love to explore what's possible for us, because even the act of them assessing what their current policies and practices were is a step in the right direction. Asking staff what their experiences are was a step in the right direction. There are people feeling like they were finally seen, like, oh, you really care about what my experiences were? Now, to say that we got all of these right would be completely inaccurate. We've got a very large employer that runs a 24/7 operation in Battle Creek that we encourage strongly to do a survey, and they kept saying, we never hear it in HR. We just don't think people have the issue. There's an issue. They run a 24/7 operation, and it's a service industry. People do not make a ton of money, right? So I said, I just don't think that's true. Let us help you do this survey. And they're like, we got it. So who did they have do their survey? Their HR department. Okay, thank you, right? It's really obvious to anybody paying attention. That is the wrong way to do this. Because then the survey comes back, the survey comes back and they're like, we don't have any issues. I'm like, oh my God, nobody's going to tell you what their issues are. There's too much risk, right? You really do need to think strategically about how you conduct the survey. Then when the data comes back, it's really about sitting with those folks and analyzing the data and saying, what does this tell you? Instead of you telling them what it says, you want them to come to their own conclusions. So I'll give you a couple examples. We have a manufacturer in town who said, this data isn't as conclusive as we expected it to be. We really don't know what direction we want to go in and where we want to invest our money to support folks. So they set up a dedicated phone line. When somebody calls in and says they can't show up at work, they ask if it's childcare related. If it is, they get sent to a different person whose job it is to document specifically what about childcare was their barrier, right? Was it that their child was sick? Was it the childcare center closed? Was there some other thing that was going on? And it's giving them richer data, so they just are going another level deeper, right? We have another employer in Battle Creek who is a smallish manufacturer, runs one shift, and the majority of his employees are women with school-age children. And he was really churning through people, right? And so he got really, he did this without this. This is just him. He's an incredible, I have to actually add him to the list of an employer that might be nominated for something, but that's another story. Just had to let Ken know because I just had it, He sat down and talked to his employees. And he said, what can I do differently to support you so that you don't leave? And they said, we don't have before and after school care. We just can't, we're missing out on our kids getting off the bus. We can't get them to school as early as you need us here. And he said, so what if I made your workday match the school day? And, right? He did it, and like he has no turnover right now. I'm sure there are some people who leave, but he's like, I want to pay my people more. I don't have more money, but I do have this. I have the ability to make their lives easier, and my productivity is going to go up because they want to be here now because they know they're cared about.
Change maybe was a feedback loop, right?
It was a total feedback loop, right? Like there's these people, like listen, right? So that's another thing we encourage folks to do is just how well do you know what the experiences of your employees are and what do you want for them? When we got into a room with 3 CEOs initially in Battle Creek, they were like, find us, they said to BCU, or Battle Creek Unlimited, which is our economic development organization, find us some land and build us a center. We're going to do a cooperative childcare center. We're like, okay. Sounds like a really laudable plan. But let's go through a few scenarios here. Okay, so first of all, where are you going to find your staff for this center, right? Because what I want you to know is that every center is understaffed right now. People cannot find the work, and let's find out why we can't find people to do this work. They don't make enough money because there's zero public investment to support the sector, right? So we help them understand that thing. And not all of your employees are going to go to one center. You're taking away family choice. And by the way, BCU can't find any land to build anything, and you're at least 3 years out, right? Like, so there's lots of these compounding problems. They're like, okay, so maybe that's not the solution. But they thought they knew best what to do. They thought it was just a lack of imagination on the part of people who are actually doing childcare, right? We even had some say at one point, we're trying to help them understand the business model of childcare, and that's why that piece of paper on the center of your tables was developed to help people understand how expensive it is to do childcare and how the margins of you making any money is so low. And they're like, well, we're successful business leaders. We could help them understand how to run businesses better. And so that's when we needed to develop this. We're like, we just need to help them understand that this is not a matter of just bad bookkeeping, right? Like there's just no money in it. And they, helping them understand that it costs a lot of money to care for children because it's important work, and we need these ratios for children to be safe and for children to be able to develop to their fullest potential. And so they start getting it, right? You keep working on this, and they keep coming to the table. You keep helping them understand, almost like drip, 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 a little bit of information at a time till they can fully grasp what's going on. They can make decisions about what they need to do for their employees based on the data that they've gathered, and then they can get the feedback loops they need to know. Has this resulted in better attraction and retention? Has this helped build the morale and the culture of our employees? One of our biggest champions is Duncan Aviation, and they are a group in Battle Creek that works on the 1% of the 1%ers planes. That's what they do, right? They cater to the uber wealthy, and they make their planes pretty. I mean, that's what they do. But they employ almost 1,000 people in Battle Creek, so they're a big employer. And they have been our biggest champion by far. And so they just allowed us to write a case study. When you go to the Pulse Roadmap, you'll see the case study there. They have found that people are happier because of all of the culture of care is what they call it. The things that they do for their employees that they call their team members has really generated for them a return on investment. Some of it's tangible in money. A lot of it isn't, because they suggest in any field that it costs you 2 times an annual salary to replace someone. Doesn't matter what kind of work they're doing. So any person you retain is going to help you in your bottom line, right? So they saw that. They're smart about that. They want to keep people there. There's one example in the case study where there's a husband and wife that both work at Duncan, and their daughter became school age, and they started getting concerned about who was going to be there when she got off the bus. And so he went to his supervisor and said, we're really worried, Ashley can't, we both are on the same shift. Ashley can't leave, I can't leave. We're really worried about our daughter being able to be home alone. We have no one to care for her. And they said, can you come in an hour early? And he's like, yeah, okay, then you leave and you go and take care of your daughter at the end of the day, right? So they're not just saying from the C-suite that this is something they're doing. They're actually making sure that their leaders, their line workers, everybody knows we need to be adaptable here. This is something that we've said is a value of ours. We want to make sure that we're as flexible as we can be. The work still has to get done, But we have to make sure that we do, and so their managers and their line workers are empowered to make those kind of decisions that work for folks. So there's a lot of ways that when an employer says, well, I can't do anything because I don't have a big giant check to write, there are a lot of things they can do to make them family friendly and make people want to stay there. People are not expecting you to solve their childcare issues for them entirely. They know that. But a little bit goes a really long way. So we want to encourage as many employers as possible to step into this space. A group of us across the state right now are coordinating an inaugural, we expect it to be every year, Michigan Childcare Champion award ceremony. It's going to happen September 18th in Lansing, and we're having all of our different regions. Now it's new, and you're going to want to know this. All the regions are going to nominate employers that are stepping in and stepping up on behalf of childcare. We're not defining it any more broadly than that. It doesn't mean that they have to be doing all the things yet, but if they've actually stepped up and actually done things and said, I'm interested, let's get this done, they can get nominated and receive an award. What we know this will do is motivate other employers. And Andy Richards, who's the COO of Duncan Aviation, has been walking alongside us this entire time. And he's like, Kathy, what do we do to get other CEOs and COOs on board? Like, I'm trying, I'm talking everywhere. He even went to Lansing and testified with us. I mean, this guy's all in, right? But he's got to try and figure out how to get his other, fellow CEOs on board. We think this might be a way to do that, right? People like recognition. Let's feed their egos. I don't care. I Trojan horse this stuff all day long. I don't care. The other thing is, you'll even note, many of our events don't even mention childcare in the title. It's like, get them in. Let's talk about talent and workforce. That works. That's often will work anyway. And that's we've learned along the way the things we have to do to make this actually digestible for folks. Because there are many people. I sat in a room full of CEOs at another event, and there was a gentleman who said, very confidently, we don't have a childcare issue because we only hire men. Okay, well, first of all, I just checked my face and said, so men don't have children? We have got such a hill to climb when it comes to the bias that exists about whose job it is to care for children, right? And every time we can, we have to, right? We have to interrupt that thinking, and not in a disrespectful way. Sometimes I probably come across as disrespectful. I try. But in a way that will help them see it and change their own way. Because when they start talking differently about it, start thinking differently about it, right? That's when things are going to change. Because in systems thinking and systems theory, so Pulse, for those of you who don't know what Pulse is, we are a systems change organization in Southwest Michigan. We've been working now a little bit more across the state, but our focus is on changing the systems that hold problems in place. So when we name a problem, we have to figure out what system is holding that in place. And the systems have elements, right? The toughest one to change is mindsets. And those can really hold a problem in place in big ways. So that's why our testifying in Lansing to our by the way, there's a legislator who is tied to TriShare who thinks that he has single-handedly solved the child care issue and that we should never come to him with another request again. And what's that?
Like a meeting.
Exactly. And again, stroking the ego, thank you. We're very grateful for TriShare. It's an incredibly innovative way for us to think about things, but it did not solve the entire childcare crisis. And by the way, we also, if we don't have people to do the work, TriShare is irrelevant. So our whole approach with that testimony was the childcare crisis is a workforce crisis. Until we get public investment, until we continue to say and scream from the rooftops, the childcare is infrastructure. And I'm hearing it out of the mouths of people on national stages now, but now everything is an unfunded mandate. We have overregulation, underinvestment that is going to lead to what we have right now. And until we fix both of those things, we're not going to get better. So I get the need for safety and all of the things we need around childcare, but these people can't survive. And if you want people to thrive in this sector, there has got to be public investment. So we have to continue to talk about that, right? Our employers play a key role in that. They sit at tables we don't sit at. They have power and influence we don't have. So the more we can get them to change their minds about what's possible and really show them what is there, they can demand it. They can actually step up and say to the folks that have a lot more power than we do that this needs to happen. And so I encourage you all to visit the Pulse Roadmap often. We are in the process right now of developing additional roadmaps. There's one for municipalities, so that it will help what our municipalities can do. They can look at their zoning in big ways to help people build childcare businesses, right? They can actually, they are big employers in many places. They need to consider themselves employers. What are they doing for their own workforce, right? There are things that they can do in partnership with others to support it. They can even just put the Great Start to Quality logo and a link on their websites so that people can get to it if they're moving to a community and saying, hey, right? If you're a community that has Help Me Grow, put that on your website. So there are things in this municipal roadmap that will help them understand the things that they can do and actually get them done. An exciting thing that I'm really proud of is that during the process of doing this planning, I learned of redevelopment ready communities. Has anybody ever heard of that? So redevelopment ready communities is something out of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Do you know what it is? All right. So do you work for a municipality?
My wife works in a planning firm that helps.
Oh, yep. Okay. So you know it all too well. Well, I read the framework for redevelopment ready communities, and there was no mention of childcare. So I called MEDC. I don't have a problem calling people, if you couldn't tell. And I said, how do you have a redevelopment ready community without childcare? And they're like, I said, well, I think it needs to be in there. And so they said, well, yeah, that gets a little complicated. So instead of backing down, they said, we're going to hire somebody to really look into this for us. They brought on a consultant and they wrote an addendum. So it's a supplement to the framework now, and because there's like 300 some RRCs, redevelopment ready communities right now, and then there's many that are in process. This now, while it's not mandated to be certified, is part of what communities can do to be able to say, and this will give them a leg up. So if I'm a developer and I want to open a business, I'm going to look for a redevelopment ready community because I know they've already gone through removing as many barriers as possible for me to start business there. So that is huge. It's launching actually September 1st. So for any community that's in, if you are in a community that is an RRC, if you don't know, ask your community development office, and then ask them how they're using the child care supplement. So we want to push from the communities so that it gets used. But those are the kind of systemic changes we're trying to make right now, is that this is not just about creating new programs. This is about changing the systems that we're actually functioning in so that they can work better. We're also doing a roadmap for economic developers. Equally positioned, they think it's somebody else's job to do this work. It's not theirs. And they help other businesses get started, but if you ask them, they don't know the first thing about helping a business start that does childcare. And childcare businesses deserve just as much support in their business development as others do, right? And so we're helping them understand the things that they can do. They can help with the zoning as well, but they work with a lot of developers. So we have down in our area the Ford EV plants that, I don't know how many of you heard about that, but it's going to be a huge, like 1,700 employees coming to a very small area in Marshall. It exists within a childcare desert. We're trying to help them understand, like, you're bringing in an influx of employees and there is no care available. Like, you need to come in and help us be a part of this solution. And I can't figure out who to call. I've called all the people I'm trying, and it's just, you get handed off and handed off and handed off. But they're going to be in for a wake-up call, right? So who does have relationships with those are economic developers. So how are we helping? 3 ways states can expand. Oh, it's okay.
CAP study.
Oh, yeah. Yes. So we have to make sure that's the CHIP stuff, right, too?
It's municipal.
Yes.
So for those that haven't heard, there was the Center for American Progress. They're like a kind of a progressive think tank. They published this work in March of last year, 2023, and it's all about how the current federal funding that is being used is specifically available for childcare issues locally. So if you're trying to build that new freeway in the middle of town, Well, the money that you use from the feds to do that specifically says that you can use it to fix the local infrastructure problem. So you can hire and bring in the companies and talent to even do the job in the first place because they know it is infrastructure. The feds, since Obama's presidency, have defined it as an infrastructure goal, and that hasn't changed at the federal level. So, through Trump's presidency, it was still, as I understand, a infrastructure goal, and it still remains one today. So only now has that language and mindset really been trickling down effectively. And so here we are. And so we need to be able to bring that concept to the leaders that are
Let them know. Yes.
and businesses who need the infrastructure and are asking their municipal leaders to represent them. They need to be able to have this equipment in their toolbox to have that conversation because that's what really moves the needle. We know, as you were describing, employers have a lot of influence with politicians and even bureaucrats who represent us, delivering the services and programs that we rely on.
Yeah. And there's so much that needs to be done. Mindsets are the first thing we have to really address, but we have to know what levers to push. And that is really why it's important to understand the entire landscape, get everybody on board to be a problem solver with us and to know that they have a role to play. And if they have a role, you just got to give them the tools. That's what we've learned over the course of doing this work for over a dozen years, is really just when you hear somebody say yes, but you got to figure out what it is they need and then create it for them. And that's what we've done. Questions? Comments? Yes.
So we talk about employers and things like that, but what about the employees? Because to me, as an employee or a parent, you think of childcare as an individual thing. We don't talk about it as a whole conglomerate of everything like that. So I think of this as my problem.
Yep.
I have to figure it out between myself and my husband. What are we doing to rally groups of people, groups of parents, groups of employees to say, hey, you have a voice. This is something that you should be standing up for, whether it be Childcare or something like that. Because I feel that maybe we don't know. You might be talking to a friend and you're like, oh, they're going through it too. And it's just something to deal with.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think that, by having employers talking about it, it creates a more permissive environment for that to be talked about. Like maybe I'm not on my own, but there hasn't been a whole lot of organizing. I am curious about the role of like unions, where those exist. They might play a role, right? Like, let's demand what we need. Let's ask for it, because that's another way to get these employers to move, right? We don't have the bandwidth to do that kind of organizing, but that does need to happen, especially in these really large employers. It's going to take that kind of push, both from the public. So how are we helping them see it? And how are their employers demanding it, or employees saying, you know what, if you want me here, this is what it's going to take. But we are limited by our imagination. Like if we don't know that it's possible to even ask, that's what I think is happening in this the employer that I said had HR do their survey. Those folks don't think anything's even possible. So they're not going to answer questions honestly at all. Like that data is just not worth anything right now.
Whenever I hear you speak, Kathy,
Yeah.
about this and this work, I hear the mantra in my head over and over again. You don't know what you don't know.
For sure.
Some of the stories that you tell are really, great case examples there where you have employers who just didn't know that there was a problem and didn't know how to ask, so they never had. But once they did, oh, well, that's an easy solution. Do you want to just come in earlier or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
Win-win, really low cost, low effort, high impact maybe, because that also leads to realizing the tip of the iceberg. What about all the other staff, And if one of these staff prevents a turnover, I wanted to do a quick callback. We were talking about this $2.8 billion a year. This is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, which ranked Michigan 39th out of 50 states in workforce participation. 39th. So, 4 out of 5 states pretty much have better participation in their workforce than Michigan. So that's a factor in our competitiveness in the economy. And when we dig a little deeper, their research also pointed out that 14% of parents left a job in the past 6 months due to childcare issues.
Yep.
So if we can stem the losses from childcare alone, 14% of parents left a job. That's a lot of employees and a lot of employers losing efficiency, money, productivity.
For sure. And I want to just leave you with this, and I'm happy to answer any other questions, but we think about this in economic terms too often. I think that we lose sight also of the social implications and the cultural implications, because being able to have quality, safe, dependable, and affordable childcare doesn't only mean people can pay their bills and they can eat. Those are all important things. But there is a Nobel Prize winning scientist who said, if I didn't have access, and she actually lived in a socialist country in Europe that paid for her childcare. Had she not had childcare available to her, she would not have solved this one gene that led to some cancer drug being developed that saved people's lives. Like, she would have been derailed from her career studying really important things. So this is not just about people not being able to make money, right? That's important. But this is also broader implications of who's getting sidelined because they can't do the work that's so important that needs to be done. So we have to be, reminding folks. There is a researcher out there, Elliot Haspel. I think he likes to consider himself a provocateur. Anybody here know Elliot Haspel? He wrote a book called How to Fix Childcare. He's a little problematic in some things, but he is a little concerned about tying childcare too much to employment, because he thinks we lose sight of the fact that children's development is so critically important, right? I would love to say that sells. It doesn't, right? So right now we have to, and I'm not kidding you, like you're going to point this out, the human brain development, when it happens, yes. So when we developed the roadmap, the first draft of it came back to us and they had little kids all over it. I go, I don't want a single I don't want a picture of a kid. I don't want a face of a family. I want nothing. I want geometric shapes and bold colors, because guess what? People dismiss it immediately if there's a kid on it. It is just true, right? I hate to say it, but it just doesn't land. So when you want to have an impact, you got to speak their language, you got to walk in their spaces, and you got to give them the things they need. They'll get there eventually, but you telling them that kids matter. There's a New York Times article that came out not too long ago where they said the U.S. doesn't really care about kids. And they unpacked every policy that shows that we don't care. We know how to solve child poverty, and we don't do it, right? We had it right there at our hands. We saw it for a couple years, what it could do, and we decided that it wasn't important enough. So we can't act like kids are the motivation for people to do things. It's just not the truth. So we have to go to where the work is. We got to make sure that people have the things they need to do the stuff. And we just got to, again, what did I say when I started? This is a mountain we're climbing. We got to take it one step at a time. We're not going to get there by just jumping over it. So
Mindsets are different for the different audience, right? So when we were talking about an employer, it's all about trying to understand a business needs bottom line. So
for sure.
It is money.
Yep.
Productivity, it is turnover. So those terms, when we try to reach those audiences, that's how we speak their language, right?
Yep.
Regardless if we think they're going to care so much about all of the other stuff we might be
Nope.
passionate about with language development, just like a politician, if we can get the outcome we want,
Doesn't matter how we got there.
we can part ways too.
Yep. All right, well, I am here to answer any other questions. Did anybody have anything immediately? Yes.
As a small business owner for childcare, I find that I connect with other childcare centers, other business owners that have childcare, and we kind of work together to gather resources to help each other.
Yeah.
To give them resources, not just our staff, but our parents as well. So like I created my website. On my website, I have resources for my families as well, so that they can find different things on there that benefit them. So that they're taught, I believe it for you.
Yes.
I'm creating my center to be a community, to be a family, so that whatever resources I have, they have it too. And I believe that's how the parents can stay connected.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
It's like even like you'd be surprised how many just with the employers alone don't know the resources that Childcare Network has as for the directors and the owners. I sent all of my staff through CA training.
Yep.
A lot of other directors don't know until I talk to them like, hey, you can send your staff this training free.
Yeah.
And they're like, really? Yeah. So it's important that we network with each other as well. And the same goes for.
Because it could be really isolating, right? That work, because you're with kids all day, and your interaction with the families is limited because it's drop off, it's pick up, and then you could do some intentional other stuff, but it's very minimal. So you could play a really key role because guess who trusts you? Families. And you have me thinking, like, what if the Pulse Roadmap was something on your website and said, talk to your employers about this? Like, what if they were bringing it to their attention and said, hey, I found out about this tool. Do you know about it? Could we do something like this?
You could reach out to every EDO.
And, right? I mean, there's a lot of opportunity here. So thank you very much for that. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well,
I just wanted to call out Mecca, right? Mecca Mac?
No.
No. Dang. She didn't make it?
Tamika.
She didn't make
Mecca's
it.
not here.
Tamika, thank you.
Did you have somebody? Did you have a
Well,
special
I
note?
think you've been on the coalition as well, right? So provider representative made it to the
Yes.
room. That was what I wanted
Okay.
to announce. So different person, still got a provider. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all. I'm sitting over here. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. That concludes the presentations. So, we've had kind of open Q&A, and we're going to continue to be around for networking and small conversations. You're also welcome to tour the museum, as I understand. We have permission. We have the place to ourselves. So, we have a fun opportunity here. Yeah. Go for a walk with a colleague and talk systems, Yeah, does anybody have any questions for me as the host today, I guess? Yeah, you're welcome. Really appreciate having everybody here. We have a hand up. Ellie.
I do want to thank everyone for coming. If you were maybe on the fence on whether or not you wanted to tour the museum, might I highly encourage you to do it because there is a really wonderful gallery that you can kind of explore and really see what's out there offered in terms of what we have in our communities certainly. So yeah, have fun with the museum, guys.
Thank you, everybody.